Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. The last time we did the program before RCTC lockdown, we were doing the candidates for the City Council. And since then, there was an election, and you've got new leadership on the council. And what do you think?
Well, Jane, thank you for having me on. I was on January of 20, about the middle of the month, and it's kind of interesting to go back and look at all the things that have happened, and no one would have predicted COVID and the effect that that had on us. And the City Council, your question is, we have a new president, and she's doing a good job, and we have 3 other new City Council members on there, and they're all doing a good job, and it's a different mix, different personalities, but they all bring something new to the council. I was lucky that I had some good experience in front of me and learned from the council people before me, and it's been a good year.
I'm watching the votes, so it's 5-7 usually, and so you're not changing.
We're working towards it, and I think you just have to listen to your staff, and I think people get used to listening to the staff, and makes it getting your feet wet. We've had 10 meetings, and it's been 5 months.
The issue that's drawn the most newspaper attention has been the zoning issues. And the zoning commission has telegraphed some things through the council, and we have what they call a united development.
Well, and that's the zoning ordinance, which is the overriding from our comp plan. We did a comp plan, and now you do the ordinance, and the ordinance sets up what can and can't happen to property. And I've watched the council for 30 years, and probably the biggest issue always is zoning issues and how they come to the city. And they're probably the neighbors who don't want things to change, and developers who are seeing a need and trying to change things in Rochester. I looked at our last year's episode, and one of the things you talked about was sewers, and how sewers affect development, and where do we go with that. And as we were talking before we went on the air, I've been working on parkland dedication with the state of Minnesota, and the Republican House people asked quite a bit about zoning for Rochester if we were going to have single-family dwellings. And it's my contention that we always have single-family dwellings in Rochester. We will not outzone them. There is a concern, Minneapolis and St. Paul got rid of single-family dwellings, and that's kind of a trend coming in the United States, but it's one of those trends I don't believe will hit Rochester.
No, I think this is a unique village, and our DMC shows it every day. What do you think about DMC's progress?
They've done extremely good. It's one of those items for downtown. Investing in sewer and infrastructure is not a pretty thing to do. Right now, in front of the Chateau Theater, it looks like a bomb still went off of it 2 years later. But when it's done, it's going to be beautiful. You have to remember the largest employer in the state of Minnesota is trying to have people come here to work, and you have to have a facility that they go, wow, I want to work in Rochester.
And how are you going to restore all those little businesses that are closing because of A, the pandemic, but B, the costs and the parking spaces are just not available?
Well, that's interesting because, again, watching the show from last year, the #1 issue was parking, and that has almost completely gone away. And Mayo Clinic employees now can park in any ramp after 7:30 in the morning, where it used to be you had to park downtown, you had to be there for 15 years. So you're seeing a little change in how that happens. I admire the businesses that have learned how to pivot and have redone things, and by taking takeout and doing other things. And it's sad. It's hard for a small business person and a family to survive. And once they do, I think things will be better. Right now we're going through the temporary shortage of employees. And you go to restaurants and they say, we don't have enough employees, and please bear with us because it's not going to be the service that we really want to give you.
Oh, the employment issue is a real issue all over the country. And what are we going to do about that?
Well, there's not much the city council can do about that, and the state of Minnesota could do some things. I think it's, again, will work its way out. The state of Minnesota, when they had unemployment last year in March, when they laid a lot of people off, Minnesota had good unemployment. Now, the clinic, when they were down in Jacksonville and down in Arizona, they were getting like $100 a week, complaining that, I can get 600 if I'm in Minnesota. So we do pay high taxes, but I think, our high taxes are a investment. I look at our Olmsted County Health Department, how well prepared they were for the pandemic, and how our fire department was well prepared for the pandemic. That took a lot of investment to do, a lot of forward thinking, a lot of what ifs happen.
And now let's start with the city council business. And that is, what is the biggest issue right now facing the city council?
Probably zoning, probably how we rezone things. I think next year our budget's going to be really hit hard. I would assume we're going to have about a 4% increase in our tax levy because our revenues are down. Our airport's about 30% of what it should be. Our hotel motel revenue is down 70%. We're hoping that comes back. Parking is another issue that has been down. It's going to be hard for us to make all those things up again. But Rochester's resilient, and they will come back.
Will the Mayo Clinic do as much at-home work for their employees that they did during the last year?
I think that all businesses in the United States are rethinking how they do their businesses, and I think the city of Rochester will be doing the same. Do we need everybody downtown? Do we need everybody to be in? I think you'll see a hybrid. I think you'll see 1 or 2 days that you're in an office, maybe sharing a space. It may not be your office with pictures on the wall, but it will be the shared space. It's still hard not to have this face-to-face conversation with people, watch body language. You look at seminars, and everybody knows that you go to a seminar, you learn something for that hour, but really you learn almost more when you go out in the hallway and talk to people and ask questions, and how do you do this, or have you had this problem, and how do you solve those problems?
I think of all the small businesses like the restaurants that have really depended on a steady flow of people at noon from Mayo, and how this may change.
It will change, and I'm one that likes change. Doesn't bother me, and I think that you'll see people pivot with how they do things and where they do things. You might see people coming downtown more often. I like Newt's. I go to Newt's downtown. It's easier to park downtown than it is sometimes out in Newt's North.
Well, that's good to know. Are you finding the new council and the county board are finding it easier to communicate now, or is it more difficult?
I think that we work well together. We spend some time together and talk to each other one-on-one. I have coffee with Mr. Wright once in a while just to check base with him, and with Ken Brown. I've had coffee with Ken Brown, and I think that we have similar goals. We have different responsibilities. They're more of the social welfare part, the arm of the state. Really the city council is a much better job.
The first guest of this series was Dave Senjum, who was talking about how the state has all this money and they don't really know what to do with it. Does Rochester, the city, or the county have a request in for any of this money?
We do, and Senator Senjum's always been a good friend of Rochester, and he's worked hard for us in Rochester. We're lucky. I worked with Representative Bolden on a parkland dedication. So being nonpartisan, I can work with Republicans, I can work with Democrats, I don't have to take a side. So that's an advantage for the citizens of Rochester. We're getting $17 million from the federal people for COVID, where the rules just came out of how we can and can't spend that. We're going to use some of that for Silver Lake pool and Soldiers Field pool to have free swimming in the afternoons for people. So we got both pools open this year, which we were going to close because of budget, but we got enough votes to open both pools, and we've raised $7,000 for swim lessons for people to have swim lessons in Rochester this year.
Okay.
That came from the citizens of Rochester. That came from small business people who said supporting, swimming for underprivileged kids and adults is a good
Yeah.
goal.
That's good.
That's excellent.
In fact, when they were talking about closing the pools, I'm glad they did not.
It's been one of those adventures that I've been put on, and I had a group of people who called me and said, let's get together and figure out how we can get both pools open. It took 30 days. We had a great team that they put together. It's almost a repeat of the track. A year ago we were talking about the track and how that got resurrected, and everybody agrees that the track has been a great addition to Rochester. It's fun to go down. We were down there the other night at 5:30 at night, and the people walking around the track and the different cultures. And people don't understand the different cultures in Rochester. If you walk around Silver Lake, you walk around the lake and you see just so many different people doing so many different activities at our park, and that's so important to have.
There's a housing report that's going to be released. Do you know anything about what's in that?
I do, and there's some troubling things. We did the Maxfield study. This is the second time that we've done one. We did it in coalition with the county. And, the prices of our properties in Rochester are rising faster than they are in the cities. And we have to do something different for that, because we want people to live in Rochester. They can live in the small suburbs of Rochester, the Byrons, the Cassins, the Owatannas, but we want them to live in Rochester, keep the wages in Rochester, keep the talent in Rochester. We have people who are on school board and commissions and helping out in churches and stuff who you want them living in your city.
And what tack are you going to take that will change the rise in construction costs here?
Well, there's not much we can do for labor. We can encourage some young people to go into the construction trade, which I would encourage people to be either a carpenter, or electrician, or plumber. They're great things to do, so we need to get some young people in those areas. We can't do much for lumber prices, but we can on sewer cost. We can on development costs, and what does it take to do that? There's a study out there. It's 30% of the cost is development, is cities and rules and regulations. It's more expensive to build in Minnesota than in North Dakota or Wisconsin. Same quality of home. So we need to look at those items. I think you need to look at the greater good. You and I need to have an investment to have new houses built, or new condos built, new townhouses built. We have to see that that's a benefit to you and I. And there's a mentality for people to, I'm in the club, I'm here, I don't want to pay for new people to come. Well, we do need those new people to come. Because our largest employer in the state needs that. We need that. We need people here in Rochester.
Did the housing aspects, the lowering price of owning housing, have anything to do with the decision of the council ahead of the zoning commission to allow the individual homes, the 12 homes on the 2 lots on across from St. Mary's?
That was an unusual deal, and we did the RX2 zoning. I always get that mixed up. RX2 zoning, and we did that about a year and a half ago to incentivize building in certain areas that we wanted transportation to be able to walk to work make sense, and this area was not part of that. And then we did the TOD, which is heavy transportation area, where buses would be running down. We just got the federal grant money for 2nd Street, a rapid bus. And so to incentivize having larger units in those places. So again, I was against I think it's the 14th Avenue and 6th Street project. Too many units, I think. You wouldn't do this at Summit Avenue. And Pill Hill is our Summit Avenue, and that character. We need to have historic buildings. We can't just keep one by one by taking them down, because pretty soon we won't have any. And so that decision was not a very good decision, in my opinion. I lost the vote, and that's my opinion.
Okay. The biggest issue facing the council then is?
Biggest issue in the council?
Yeah. You talked about
budget is going to be the huge one for us. I think that it's going to be hard for the first timers to understand saying no to people. It's hard because there's so many needs and so many wants, and then you come down here and say, If we did that, it's going to be a 30% increase in taxes. Not going to be a 30% increase, but it's going to be about a 4% increase. Last year we held the tax rate at 0. We thought that was important during that time to do that, but we have expenses. Our expenses didn't go down last year. We still had police department, we still had the fire department, and that's 60% of our budget right there.
Well, now that's in addition to the federal money that's coming into the city?
That is correct. That's additional to the federal money that's coming in. That will backfill a lot of what we did, but we're a $400 million budget. So 17 million might be a little much for me, maybe not you, but for me 17 million is a lot of money. But for the federal budget, for the city budget, it's not that big of a,
okay.
It will help.
How's North Broadway coming?
It's going great. That was a 5-year struggle for us, and we got North Broadway going. They did a good job with 13th Street and 14th Street getting that opened as soon as they could, because we're going to be closing and tearing down the Elton Hills Bridge. And so that corner of Rochester is tough to get around if you don't have Elton Hills and you don't have North Broadway. So those are going to be some big advantages to have that going. We should be done by November with it. And it was interesting, I heard a conversation with a business owner who said Rochester's done a really good job of communicating, letting them know what's going to happen on North Broadway. So that was one of the things we really pushed hard. The chamber pushed hard on that to get that information out so businesses and tenants knew what was happening.
Yeah, because the businesses were really worried about losing their customers, and they wouldn't have a place to park.
And part of what the discussion that we had a decision to make in January how we wanted to go with it. And most of the businesses said, we'd like to have it done now. I mean, COVID's not going to be completely over. Next year it's going to be completely over, hopefully, and nobody knows that, but that's the thought. And so we want our businesses to be up, fully running. Let's get through this season. Some businesses won't survive it, and they won't survive construction. Now the North Broadway McDonald's is being remodeled right now. So, remodeling for them takes a little bit away from their customers. Having the road closed in front of them takes away from their customers. So when that road opens in front of them, there'll be a remodeled McDonald's, and so they'll weather that a little bit easier for them.
And what is being done by the city to help the small businesses that really took a hit during the pandemic?
We did a lot of COVID funding, and we held back on the liquor license. We held back on any license that we could. We tried to do as much as we could. The county did a lot. The federal government gave the county money, they gave the state money, and they gave the city some money. And whatever we could do for utility rebates or utility forgiveness, whatever we could do to help out, we tried very hard to.
Okay. The homeless are always a topic of need, and how are we coming in terms of progress in finding places for our homeless?
Well, we're lucky in Rochester. We have the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army runs a day center. In Olmsted County has very good programs for the homeless, and really and truly they will tell you that they have a home for every person. There are a lot of individuals with mental illness, with drug addiction and alcohol addiction that do not want to live in a shelter or don't want to live in a home. And so it's difficult. There's probably about 30 people in Rochester, Olmsted County that are difficult to house. They'll put tents up, and the tents aren't safe. The community is outside. And it's hard for us to get to them, say us, the county, to get to them to provide services. So, my hats go off to Salvation Army. We have the landings holding up. Their contract should be done by the end of August. They were pretty much put in for COVID reasons, and I don't know what they'll be doing.
Okay. Your biggest personal challenge in District 5, in your own home district?
Ward 5 is unique. It has a lot of different areas in Rochester. I think just communicating to everybody. I sent out 11,000 flyers in December to all my ward people, and I got a lot of response to that. But how do you communicate to different people and different residents? And some, work during the day, and so you don't want to have a meeting during the day. And COVID's made that more difficult. To sit down at Dunn Brothers and have coffee with somebody has been more difficult. I'll be working with 125 Live. I think the fourth Friday of every month, we're going to have a get-together, and they can come talk to me, and I can bring people. Molly from the sixth ward, is going to be doing it on the second Friday of the month. So we're trying to find out how do we communicate with people. I've been on Carol C. Radio once a month with an update for the council. This show is helpful to get your word out and have people talk to you.
Okay. When you talk about getting the word out, what's the first thing you think of?
Listening. Have people, how can they get a hold of me? How can they tell me what they're thinking? And so listening is probably the best thing that we can do. And I'll give you an example of it. When we're doing swim lessons at Silver Lake, the barrier for people coming swimming was swimsuits. Well, we didn't think that. I have a swimsuit, you have a swimsuit, and we didn't think of that. So different cultures have different ideas on swimsuits and what you can and can't wear. Let's get them swimsuits. And so when we raised almost $7,000, it's not just for lessons, but also for swimsuits to get rid of that barrier.
That's great.
Yeah.
And unsung.
Well, you don't need to be sung.
I know.
Sometimes
I know.
it's
they
best.
Don't do it.
I'm a very humble person.
Okay. All right. You have a list of things that you wanted to talk about, and I think we've talked about everything except that list.
Well, good news is on East River Parkway, or East River Road, which is by Think Bank there, off of 37th Street, we have traffic calming, and it's taken about a year and a half for us. There's a lot of speeding, a lot of shortcut traffic going down there, so we're going to put some barriers up. It was fun because back in September we met in the parking lot at Foster Aarons Park and had a get-together, and we had 40 people, and so we had to socially distance. We did it outside, and the city finally came up. The traffic people did with what we needed to do. So that was a nice thing for that neighborhood. Speeding is huge for the neighborhoods. We went to a citywide 25-mile-an-hour speed limit in certain areas, and we're trying to implement that slowly. I've been trying to drive 25 miles an hour down residential streets, and it's a habit to have to break.
Well, it's sort of hard when they keep designing streets like 4th Street Southwest to go over 25.
And that's part of the problem. In the old days, I have a couple streets that are 65 feet wide, and no cars parked on it. Your vision says it's safe to drive faster, so you drive faster. So when you do put parking along and you do put curbs in there, it does slow down the traffic. It might take you 2 minutes to get across town fast or slower, but it makes it calmer. It makes it easier for people to walk across the street. I think we forget that in Rochester sometimes, is that downtown there's so many people who have to walk across the street.
What are the trees going to do that they're putting in downtown Rochester?
Aren't they great? It's fun to go down there on First Avenue and see the trees. And I've been told that the crows will not like these trees because the branches are upright, I believe, and so those won't be there. It was fun to watch that construction go on last year and this year, and that should be finished, I think, by August down First Avenue stretch.
And will there be traffic lanes?
Yes, there'll be traffic lanes in some parking, not as what we had in the past for on-street parking, but I believe we had put in quite a few, not quite a few, but we put in parking spots.
All right. But also on your
big issue coming up for us for bonding would be district heating. The condensate line, the steam line for the county from the waste to energy facility is aging, so we're going to have a district heating come up. And then the other one would be our Willow Creek Trail connection. We're trying to connect that to Sturteville so that you could ride your bike to Sturteville and hopefully get down to Lanesboro on a bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have 6 minutes left.
Well, good.
And so what else do you have?
Well, we're lucky. We have Mrs. Elms became our new city administrator. She came from Mankato, and very impressed with her. I do a lot of business in Mankato, and the business people and the contractors thought highly of her, and I've been very impressed with how she's taken the reins here in Rochester.
And we lost our city attorney.
Yes.
Jason, to go to Oregon.
Yes.
Did he go with the city administrator, our first one?
Well, no, he didn't go with Mr. Reimer, but when Mr. Reimer applied for a job, the headhunter asked for a reference, and of course he said, would you be interested? And he decided he wanted to go out back west. So,
Yeah.
be an interesting opportunity for us.
When do you expect to name a permanent replacement?
Oh, you know, government doesn't move the fastest, and I would hope to have somebody in there by September.
Yeah.
It's June already.
All right. The city administrator's greatest strength would be what? Did she communicate?
Her communication, her experience, her she's I'll say she's like me. She's blunt and to the point, and she'll tell you things of why you can't do this or why you should do this or what this, you know, how could we achieve what you want to achieve, and I've been very impressed with her.
Okay. When they proposed putting the library and the city park department under the city, the council voted it down.
Well, it's an odd situation. The charter, which is what runs the city of Rochester, is the rule book, and you were on the charter commission. Thank you for being on that.
I was.
It was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so the library is one of our charter. The public utilities is one of them, and then the parks are. And by design, the department heads there are hired and fired by those charter commissions, or from the people on those committees. That's not something that we do in practice, and so we want to reflect what happens there. There's also some rules, and it got kind of tied into some politics that people didn't quite understand. I voted to make the change. I think I was one of the only ones that did. But I would like to see us at least have the charter reflect what we actually do in practice.
Yeah. And the city has changed since that was done in the early part of the last century.
1910, I think, is when the library board became a charter. Yeah, it's changed quite a bit since then.
Okay, one more issue.
Airport, we got our bonding for that, so the runways are getting expanded out there, which will make that more dependable. That was a big ask and something that the state helped us out with bonding on that. Master plan for Silver Lake is coming up for the whole park. That'll probably start in November. We delayed that a little bit because of COVID. We got rid of the snow dump there, so we have 5 acres of land that we can now use. We moved the snow dump, the city from downtown dumps their snow in the wintertime to the old coal plant where the coal was stored. So that was a better solution. It's worked better for Public Works. So that was a good win for us. Been working on parkland dedication. I've never worked with a state bill before. Our lobbyist helped me out with that, and the city council voted we needed to change this. And basically all it is right now, if you have property and you subdivide it, you contribute to the parkland dedication. Well, we have buildings downtown that weren't subdivided, so we could have a 160-unit apartment building not contribute to parkland dedication. And so one word that we need to change is that subdivision word. Well, we ran into politics, and so it was fun to watch, and I testified in the Senate and testified in the House, and was questioned by people, and that was a learning experience. But I think we'll win sooner than later. And we've been lucky. We have our Representative Bolden's been very helpful on that, and so has Senator Nelson, and Senator Senchum's helped too.
Okay, what is the most common question that you as a city council member are asked?
How do I find something? How do I get something fixed? I always say about 7% of people know who we are. You know, you follow politics, I follow politics, but most people don't. Until your sidewalk gets an orange mark on it, and I get the phone calls on the sidewalk, which my area just got hit. Snow removal would be one of those issues that people bring up. How do I get something done? You know, there's just a problem, you know, in pointing things out. And 99% of them are very legitimate and very helpful, and you know, you can't be everywhere, but it's nice to hear.
If you could change one thing, what would it be about either the council or the city administration, or?
I don't know what I would change. I'm excited to be on the council. I'm excited how the council works. I think that it's a neat, I use the word neat, group of people, individuals, all are different. I would hope that we could take care of all our citizens' needs. if you could wave that magic wand and take care of all the different little issues that we need to take care of. There's never enough funding, but that too much funding is not good either. And
That's a problem we don't want either. Okay. Shaun Palmer from Rochester's 5th District.
Yes.
Thank you for all your work and your thoughtful consideration of all those ideas. And we wish you a good term in the council.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you, our viewers, for being with us this week. And as we review what's happening in the city, we'll be back next week, same time, same channel. I'll see you then.